At this point, we've reached the end of our stage 1, that is, where we're preparing for emergencies. Now, after we've completed steps 1 through 3B, what we'll notice is, first, we've deleveraged. Right? So we have no debt except for our mortgage, and we also have a 10% buffer in our home's value. So that gives us a reasonable amount of room for things to turn bad. It also gives us a lot of flexibility because we don't have all these outstanding obligations. Second, we have 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in an emergency fund, remembering that we could, if need be, make this last 6 to 12 months, so that will get us through most unemployment spells. And then finally, because we've paid off our debts, we have fewer monthly expenses, and that gives us a little bit more flexibility as well. So now let's move on into stage 2, the building of wealth. Here, the first step is step 4A. So we're taking 20% of our money, putting it towards savings. Now, of that, we want to take half, that is 10% of our overall income, put it in some kind of retirement funds. Here, the key is to use some kind of tax-preferred accounts. One suggestion that I've heard is if your 401k or whatever the retirement plan is through your employer involves a match, certainly pick up the match. Right, so put in that as far as it's matched by your employer, then perhaps put money into a Roth IRA up to the legal limit for that, and finally put more money into the 401k if you still have money left over to put toward retirement savings. Now, a point here, I'm not somebody who says everybody should have a Roth or everybody should have a traditional IRA. It's something where I really think you need to think about it. The big difference really comes in when things are taxed. Personally, I don't trust what tax rates are going to be in the future, so I'd rather go ahead and pay my taxes on things now, and the Roth IRA allows me to do that. I pay taxes on things now, and then I put money into the IRA, and then when it comes back out, it's not taxed. Whereas with the traditional IRA, it's just the opposite. You put money in before taxes, so that money is not considered taxable income at the point that it goes in, but when it comes out, it will be taxed at whatever income tax rates happen to be at that time. Now, just one example of how this would work out. Suppose you have a $50,000 a year salary. In that case, you would want to put aside $5,000 for retirement savings every year. Suppose your employer matches the first $2,000 in the 401k, so you go there first. Then you have $3,000 left over to save, so put that in a Roth IRA. It's just one example. Step 4B is what we call dreams. Here you're taking 5% of your overall income, putting it toward big ticket items you'd like to have. So this could be things like a European vacation, it could be a Ferrari, it could be a pool, it could be whatever you want. Here I think it's actually very helpful to make a list. Come up with what are the things you actually do dream of doing. And then, as you're saving money in your account, put it toward one of these particular things. Say, okay, here's how much money I think I need for that European vacation. And as the money goes in, you see yourself getting closer to actually being able to take it. Right? That's the really nice thing about this dreams category. It's probably the one that's the most fun. And then in step 4C, you pay off the house early. Big key here is that when you pay off your house early, it decreases your housing costs dramatically. A lot of the money you're paying when you make that mortgage payment is actually going toward paying your mortgage. So once the mortgage is paid off, you're going to see a big drop in how much you have to pay in order to have your house. An interesting relationship, though, between, say, having a child and getting a 15-year mortgage, as most people seem to have a child right around the time they buy a house, maybe separated by a year or two. If that's the case, say that it happens the same day, right? You buy a house with a 15-year fixed-rate mortgage, and you have a child that same day. For one, that's a horrible idea. Don't ever do that. That'd be a terrible day. But if you do, interesting how things will time out. You end up paying off your mortgage right around the time that your kid says, "Hey, I'd like to get a car." So that now you have money that's freed up that if you want to help them buy a car, you can do it. If you want to help them pay for car insurance, which is substantial, you could do it. At the same time, they're going to be looking just a few years from then, possibly wanting to go to college. Now here, you freed up that income so you can start setting money aside to help them pay for college. Or you can just use your income as it comes in to help them pay for college if that's something you'd like to do. So paying off your house right around the time your kid turns 15 or 16 has some really nice advantages in terms of where the expenses start coming with your children. Now let's turn toward investment strategy. What do you do with these investment funds, or say funds that are sitting in an education savings account for your kids if you want to help them pay for college? Now one big point is that some people are very good at picking investments that can beat the market. But a bigger point is that most people are not. Most people are actually relatively lousy investors. The more they try or put forth their own effort, the worse they're going to do, just because they don't have the skills necessary. Another point here is that what we observe with people is systematic overconfidence. Just a reminder, if you've watched my videos on behavioral economics, this is something we observe. People have too much confidence in their own abilities. Right? So it ends up that lots of people out there are going to believe that they're very good investors that actually aren't very good investors. So that being the case, it's probably the safer route to not try to pick individual investments. Instead of trying to beat the market, just match the market. Now, there are several strategies out there that are sensible. It's a good idea just to pick one and stick with it. So, for example, strategy 1, this is what I do with my investments. It's what we call asset allocation. Here, you just balance different types of investments. For example, you might decide you want to have 5% sitting in cash. Cash offers a lousy return, but on the other hand, it tends not to lose value. I have 5% sitting in metals, say silver, gold, and the like. These, while in the long run they tend not to be awesome investments, though gold has actually performed very well recently, and they do have the benefit of doing very well when other things do poorly. So if, say, you're coming on the eve of retirement and the stock market crashes, odds are pretty good that silver and gold are going to do very well to help offset that loss. I have 10% in what they call real estate investment trust. That's a company that owns real estate, might own apartment buildings or shopping malls, these kinds of things. That's a way of investing in real estate without having to manage the real estate yourself. I have 20% sitting in bonds. These are bonds where I'm lending money to either corporations or governments. And 60% in stock. With stock, you are actually an owner of the corporation. Then every month, whenever I put excess cash into this account, I put it into whatever investment is falling behind in its allocation. For example, if, say, bonds have done very poorly, so they've dropped below 20% of the total value in the portfolio, excess cash would go into bonds. Then every year I go through and I look at what are my percentages like based on the current values. Anything that's over, I sell off some to get it back down to the percentage I want, and then put that money wherever things are falling behind. Another strategy that I like is an all-stock strategy. In this case, you keep something between 5 and 10% of your money in cash, and the rest into a well-balanced stock fund. The reason I like this is that it's remarkably simple, and it will, on the whole, give you a very good return over the long run. So as long as you're saving for something that is several years away, say a decade or more, this is a reasonable way to handle things, because it ends up stocks generally recover within a decade even if they collapse. So this is nice in its simplicity, and it will tend to perform relatively well.